Salut tout le monde! Welcome back to Unintentionally Frenchified. If this is not your first video of mine that you've seen, then you know that even though I've been living in France for over 10 years now, and even though I finally speak French fluently, woo! I still have a very thick American accent when speaking French. So if you want to check it out, here's a video that I've got where I'm entirely speaking in French so you can see I absolutely get by, but it is very clear I am a foreigner. And pronunciation is pretty key, right? You know, for some people, the difference between saying I grew up in Chicago and I grew up in Chicago is just not the same thing. And people are like, what? Where'd you grow up? I don't understand. So I had to work super hard since pronunciation isn't my strong suit, especially when it came to pronouncing French brands with a French accent. And those brands that I knew back home growing up in the States, I had to undo years and years of saying them with an English accent. So this video is going to be all about those 15 brand and companies that you are probably most likely butchering when you say them, and I'm going to teach you how to say them with more of a French accent. Before we jump into the video, Lingoda is launching one of their very famous language sprints. The challenge is going to kick off very soon this month, so I did not want to miss the opportunity to tell you about it. You've probably already heard about Lingoda because Lingoda is the #1 online language learning school out there, and you might have heard about their sprint challenges because over 40,000 students have participated in a Lingoda sprint worldwide. The concept is super simple. You basically decide at the beginning of the sprint if you want to sign up for 15 classes per month for 2 months or 30 classes per month for 2 months. You sign up for either French, English, German, or Spanish. And at the end of the 2 months, based on which option you choose, you're not only going to be conversational, being able to really speak in the language that you chose, this is already amazing, but you're also gonna get either 50% or 100% of your cash back if you went to all of your classes. So it's basically amazing because not only are you gonna learn that language, but you are also going to get money back. Huge motivator. What you might not yet know about Lingoda is that their method really focuses on a maximum amount of conversation time and lots of human interaction. Each class is led by a native speaking teacher with a maximum of 5 students, but maximum. Most of my classes have more like 3, maybe 4 sometimes, but a maximum of 5 students in the class, which basically gives everybody a lot of opportunities to speak. This also allows more than enough time to get lots of personalized feedback and lots of one-on-one time with whatever you're personally struggling with. Pronunciation. If anything that I'm saying here rings a bell for you, makes you say, that might be for me, then go check out in my YouTube description below. I put a link. It can take you to the sprint page. It'll share all the information. And I've also shared a discount code with you so you can get 20 euros off or $25 off your deposit when you sign up. I would go check it out quickly because the sprint is going to kick off soon this month. All right, let's start off with 6 luxury brands that you probably have heard of before, but like me, possibly can't afford, but still important to know how to pronounce. Number 1, Hermes. This very well-known French brand is often pronounced by English speakers like Hermes. First things first, H is always silent in French. So if you cut the H off, and even if you already start saying Hermes, you're a lot closer. Next thing that I think is important to know is that ER at the beginning is actually pronounced more like the word air in English, like the air in the room. So say more like an Hermes. And then you're really getting close to the French pronunciation. Number 2, Cartier. Cartier is one of my absolute favorites because back in my intern days, years ago, unfortunately, I worked for the group Richemont, and Richemont actually owns a bunch of brands. It's much like LVMH or Kering, and it owns Cartier. And I would tell my parents, because they didn't know what Richemont was, I would tell them that I worked for a company that owned Cartier. And my parents would say all the time, Cartier. And it was fabulous. So The thing about pronouncing Cartier that I think is really different is first you need to make sure that that T, that you really pronounce it. Where I come from in the US, for sure, one of the accents that's particular to where I come from is T's sometimes are pronounced like a D, hence the Cartier from my family. Second thing to make sure that you remember is that there should be 3 actually syllables here. So it should be Cartier. Okay, and so the middle symbol is a bit like tea that you're drinking, because the I-E-R is pronounced IE. I'm not going to get into too much of the French writing versus speaking, but just so you know, there are a lot of silent letters, so that R at the end you don't pronounce. So 3 syllables, pronounce the T, and say the word T in the middle, Cartier. Number 3, Chloé or Celine. I want to put these both together because they both have 2 particularities. It's the accents on the E. So both of these are words that we say in English a lot, Chloe and Celine. The difference is when you put the accents on those E's, they become more of an A sound. So Chloé, Chloé, or it becomes Celine, not Celine. Say, because you've got that A sound, Celine. Number 4, Christian Louboutin. The very famous shoes with the red on the soles that some of you guys may know is a mouthful of a brand to say, and it's definitely a complicated one. Christian becomes Christian, normally in English. There's a lot of this chin coming out, and when you say it with the French accent, you really need to pronounce the T. It becomes tien, tien, so Christian. And then for the last name, you really have to break it up a bit like Cartier. You break it up into 3. So Louboutin, Louboutin. The N you don't really pronounce. It's a bit of a silent N. I have to admit, I think this is the hardest one on the list in terms there's just so much going on when you say the name. Christian Louboutin. Number 5, Louis Vuitton. So I normally hear this, people respect the Louis, you know, they don't usually in English, I don't hear people adding the S. I've never heard Louis Vuitton, so we're okay. But most of the time they say Louis Vuitton. And actually when you got the V and the U, it makes a vui sound. So you really know somebody's making an effort when you hear Louis Vuitton. You see the difference? Vuitton, Vuitton. Louis Vuitton. So number 6 is Chanel. Most people pronounce Chanel properly as well. Even in the English, we'll put the French accent on it. I just think it's something to keep in mind because sometimes you hear people trying to make the sh sound for Chanel as a ch sound, because in English, a CH is, you know, chuck, you know, chin. You know, we make it, it's a very harder sound. And I like to say it's very much like champagne. You know, champagne is a French word, and the reason we don't say champagne and we say champagne is because CH becomes Chanel. It becomes much more of a like shh, you know, in English. So just think when you see a CH in French, make more of that shh sound. A little bit smoother, a little bit softer, you know. There's a reason French is beautiful to the ear. All right, moving on to beauty. I wanted to do 2 brands in the beauty industry because I work for the beauty industry, so I figured that it absolutely had to be on here. First one here is L'Oreal Paris. So I would say Americans do a pretty good job of pronouncing the first word L'Oreal because L'Oreal Paris, as we call it in the US, is very present. But the actual name of the brand isn't Paris because the S at the end, the word Paris is not pronounced. So on top of the S you need to get rid of. In French, the I usually makes an E sound. So just like the city isn't pronounced Paris in French, it's pronounced Paris, it's the same for the brand. L'Oreal Paris. Number 2 is La Roche-Posay. So La Roche-Posay is a lesser known brand to some Americans. However, when they do first see the brand, they tend to pronounce the La and the Posay pretty well. But where it tends to get a little bit hard is the Roche. And they end up usually making it harsher and saying Roche. So La Roche-Posay. And my tip here is you really should think a bit of like rowing when you're saying it, like the word row, and you say more Roche, okay? La Roche-Posay and not La Roche. All right, so for some of you watching here, we've done a lot of luxury, we've done a lot of beauty. Let's do some cars. Let's change sectors and go into the cars. So the first one here is Renault. This is a really hard one when you see it written out because there's so many of these letters that are silent and that you don't pronounce. And in a lot of other countries, you're gonna pronounce, for example, the T, so you hear Renault, or you pronounce the L really and you hear Renault. But actually in the French way of saying it, the L and the T are silent, and the A and the U make kind of this O sound. So Renault. And of course, if you can do the French R, I try, but I'm not really good at it. And you do more of like a Renault, but it's even maybe softer than that normally, then you've really got the word down right. Number 2, Peugeot. Peugeot. Americans love to butcher this one, and it's hard when you see it if you don't know this car brand because you'd want to say Peugeot, Peugeot. Peugeot. In French, the G is actually a J sound. So it makes, again, this is a running theme in the French language, but more of a soft J sound. And then the T is a silent one, you know? So it makes a Jo sound at the end. Almost like the name Joe, but softer, Jo. Okay, so Peugeot. All right, next sector, let's move on to a bit of gas energy. So the first one I'm gonna do is total. Total. This one's hard because this is really a word, total, that you would see everywhere. It looks like we're talking about English, but the way that the French actually pronounce it is slightly different. It's really where you put the enunciation. So instead of total, you have total, okay? Tal. Think a bit like if you were saying my uncle Al, total. And the second one is air liquide, air liquide. This one as well, when you see the word, you think liquid, and so you want to say air liquid, but it's not, it's liquide. If you speak French at all, then you know that QUI, when you pull it out of there, and we say qui, that's how you pronounce it, and it's the word is who, qui, and it's the same thing, when you stick it in the middle of the word, it becomes liquide, and you pronounce the D at the end, so air liquide. And of course, you get extra bonus points if instead of saying just air, you kind of are able to roll that R to do the soft air. So hard. Okay, I'm gonna finish up with a couple miscellaneous ones. The first one that I wanted to do is Michelin. Michelin, because I grew up next to a Michelin tires. Like, it wasn't far. I saw it every single day that my parents would take me, and we pronounced it Michelin, the Michelin tires, and it was like this big old, I don't even know what you call it, their logo, but this big lumpy creature that looked like it had a bunch of white tires around it. Basically, in this word, one of the big differences is the end of it with that N sound. So the way that we would say it in the US, you would put a lot of enunciation on the N. The N. The French would say that they're pronouncing the N, but it's very soft. So at the end, it comes up Michelin. All right, guys, that is a wrap on the French brands or companies that you're probably butchering, slaughtering, pronouncing wrong. Please let us know in the comments below if you have tips for pronunciation, if you have tips for ways to pronounce it. You know, I did my best. It's most certainly not perfect. So by all means, let us know in the comments what you guys thought. If you guys are interested in Lingoda, you know what to do. It's in the YouTube description. You've got the link and you've got the discount code for 20 euros and $25 off. So please, please go check that out. Otherwise, I will see everybody la semaine prochaine. Mwah! Bisous!